So, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for letting me talk tonight, and thank you very much for your nice introduction. Okay, tonight I'm going to talk about teaching women philosophers, and I focus on the equality aspect. Teaching the ideas and arguments of women philosophers is essential. There's more about women philosophers' thought than just teaching Hannah Arendt's On Violence from 1970. The token women philosopher in the German school curriculum, who even said she wasn't a philosopher after all. Philosophy teachers are multipliers. It's their task to implement gender equality by addressing the ideas of women philosophers as well. The mediation of these ideas promotes a correct and holistic picture of the world, because the ideas from past centuries influence our lives today. In this context, the equality of men and women is a fundamental topic. So it's crucial that the students know the ideas and arguments of women philosophers to make it easier for them to navigate in a pluralistic world. It's also essential for the development and identity of the student's personality. It is vital to recognize the intellectual achievements of women, since our current understanding of the history and culture of philosophy is a male-dominated and orientated one. This talk aims at showing how to implement 4 female thinkers of the history of ideas. I say history of ideas. I mix it up, I have to say. Right, into the core curriculum in school, and of course at university as well, since we are not only talking in front of teachers, but also in front of university lecturers and teachers. I will outline how the basic idea of the equality of men and women can be taught by a text of Hildegard of Bingen, Pizan, and today's everybody's darling, Olympe de Gournay, and of course Olympe de Gouges. Doing research on the universal scholar Hildegard of Bingen means to move at the intersection of philosophy and theology. Students might already have been faced with Hildegard of Bingen lifestyle products, for instance in health food shops. Philosophers primarily know, in addition to excerpts from her medical work, Hildegard of Bingen's 3 volumes of visionary theology: Scivias, Liber Vitae Meritorum, and De Operatione Dei. The first visionary work, Scivias, consists of 26 visions that describe the image of the world, mankind and God, starting from Genesis to the resurrection within the dualism of good and evil. Excerpts from these visions can easily be read in school and at university, preferably when dealing with philosophy of religion and anthropology. In the Liber Vitae Meritorum, the second visionary world, moral conflict situations illustrate the sense of life, the impact of life's decision on, and their responsibility for their way of life. Virtues like humility and vices as pride are represented allegorically and interact dichotomously within moral conflict situations. This visionary work is particularly suitable for dealing with meta-ethics and normative ethics in school. The third and final visionary volume, De Operatione Dei, is again located in the field of philosophy of religion and metaphysics. In 13 visions of the world and the macrocosmos set in relation to man and the Trinity doctrine, Hildegard of Bingen develops a God-likeness which applies equally to man and woman. The 2 sexes are on the same level. In the 4th vision of her 3rd volume, De Operatione Dei, Hildegard of Bingen describes it as follows, I quote: "Man and woman are mixed together in such a way that one is the work of the other, opus alterum per alterum. Without the woman, the man could not be named man. Without the man, the woman couldn't be named woman." End of my quote. This view was revolutionary at the time of scholasticism, and mostly not represented by contemporary philosophers. In the second volume of her visionary trilogy, Hildegard of Bingen does not hand down, I quote, Elizabeth Gosman, usual cliches of gender characteristics, but symbolizes each of the two sexes both in a positive and a negative way. She describes being a woman not as defect, but with self-important positive qualities. End of my quote. The duties of men and women are equally distributed and interacting without being interchangeable. Wisdom is the summit of all God's forces and the basis of prudent godly ministry. The origin of this is the woman, while the man is the power of completion. Such an explicit representation of the sexual egalitarianism is not only an exception in scholasticism, but is also a role model for the three subsequent women philosophers. Christine Pizan is often referred to as the founder of modern feminist philosophy, and being the first French professional writer. Her comprehensive works formed, in particular, La Livre de la Cité des Dames, the Book of the City of Ladies from 1404, I quote my boss, the starting point for the feminist tradition and a central reference point for the future literary productivity of women philosophers. End of my quote. Standing at the verge of an early modern period, Pizan started the debate on where women in society should position themselves. A debate which continues to this day and from which ultimately the women question arose. In her secular utopia, Pizan criticizes the misogynist literature of her time, especially the Romance de la Rose, which attributed stereotypically negative properties such as sinfulness and spiritual weakness to female characters in a rough language and reduces the women's life purpose to the act of procreation. According to Pizan, women are equal to men in every way. This equality is valid for all areas, especially with regard to moral integrity. In the first part of her utopia, Christine Pizan negates accusations of immorality of women several times and substitutes them with a claim of moral equality. At the same time, she is categorically opposed to any form of depravity of human nature. And I quote her, "It is true that there's nothing worse than a woman who's dissolute and depraved. But you would never find even a handful of women who were anything as perverse as the vast numbers of men. Besides, it's beyond doubt that women count as God's creatures and are human beings just as men are. They are not a different race or strange breed, which might justify their being excluded from moral teachings." End of her quote and mine. Outraged by the slanderous and wrong attributions in the Romance de la Rose, Pizan takes the opposing position to the representations and thus starts the first literary controversy of modern times. In her writings, Pizan defends the intellectual capacity of women and their admission to the emerging universities in humanism. We heard that tonight before. As well as the idea of equality between man and woman. The authorial narrator, Pizan, investigates the truth behind the attributions with the help of three allegorical figures: Lady Reason, Lady Rectitude, and Lady Justice. The result of this investigation is the City of Ladies. Each of the three allegorical women is the godmother of one of the city's three construction phases. Mythical and non-mythical thinkers such as Sappho, Minerva, and Sempronia have significantly influenced the history of mankind, are part of the allegory's entourage. foremost also the biblical character of Eve. Like in Hildegard of Bingen's work, Eve is essential for the legitimation of the City of Ladies. As the first woman created in the spiritual, and I would want to stress that, not the physical, like of God, she is in a prominent position for the argument of this utopia, just like the Virgin Mary. The Book of the City of Ladies is an early meta-didactic work. The stories of the female thinkers are teaching examples that serve to construct the City of Ladies argumentatively. Lady Reason directs Pizan to make use of her reason. I quote, "Take the spade of your intelligence and dig deep to make a great trench all around where you see the line I've traced." End of my quote. After excavation of the founding's old shapeless stones, misogynist utterances are gradually replaced by new stones, positive female examples. Pizan is a thinker at the transition of two ages, the Middle and the Early Modern Age. She is an initiator and pioneer, and essentially contributed to the dispute over the nature of woman, the querelle des femmes. Both in the Book of the City of Ladies and her other works, she successfully argued against the accusations of her male contemporaries and established the fundamental equality of men and women, which is based on reason. Olympe de Gouges is also strongly connected to the querelle des femmes, as one of the originators of modern feminism. Furthermore, she is considered to be one of the founders of the Académie Française, and one of the first women who promoted the education of women as guarantee for equality. Her philosophically most important work is the treatise Égalité des hommes et des dames, the equality of men and women from 1622. We heard that before tonight. She became well known among her contemporaries as editor of Michel de Montaigne's essays. At the end of the 16th century, Gournay already criticized that men commit injustice when they denied women education, knowledge, and power. In the preface of the essays, Gournay aims at establishing the equality of men and women. The super-elevation of women is like the humiliation argumentatively unfounded and against nature. I quote, "Most of those who take up the cause of women redirect the preference to them, I mean men. For my part, I fly all extremes. I'm content to make them equal to men, given that nature too is greatly opposed in this respect to superiority as to inferiority." End of my quote. Comparable to the mythical and non-mythical entourage of the three allegorical ladies in Christine Pizan's The Book of the City of Ladies, Gournay also refers to female thinkers of ancient philosophy, Diotima and Aspasia, which are portrayed as Plato's teachers. I won't say any more, you've heard that tonight. But now the next proof. "If proof is needed," I quote her now, "is there more difference between them, women I mean, and men than among themselves, according to the teaching they receive, according to whether they are brought up in a city or a village, or according to nationality? Therefore, why should not their training in public matters and in letters, of a kind equal to men's, fill the gap that commonly appears between their minds and those of men?" End of my quote. Gournay's remark that the degree of excellence is less often regained by women than men is due to a lack of education. She demands education for both men and women. The educated woman is the key to equality of man and woman. Her appeal to overcome the non-natural education gap between men and women is born of the desire to overcome inequality and to take them away from the distaff to which they were banished by this heteronomy. This divergence is led back to the predominant male physical strength. But, Gournay says, no difference in terms of skills of reason or moral competence can derive from this. The only difference that exists between the sexes is of physical nature and serves the preservation of mankind. We had that about procreation, remember? Okay, men are neither superior due to their physical strength, nor are they more competent to rule, since women and men alike come to paradise. That's her argument. Like Plato, with his sheepdog metaphor in his Politeia, she concludes with a beastly example. Further, I quote, "The human animal, taken rightly, is neither man nor woman, the sexes having made double, not as much to constitute a difference in species, but for the sake of propagation alone. The unique form and distinction of that animal consists only in his rational soul. There's nothing more like a cat on a windowsill than a female cat." Probably you know that quotation as well. Men and women are so thoroughly one that if man is more than woman, woman is more than man. That mirrors Hildegard of Bingen's quote, probably you remember. In the course of her argumentation, Gournay calls for the equal participation of women in society, and thereby societal responsibility. She refuses to put notions of human masculinity and femininity into God. She pleads for the sexlessness of the human soul, like Hildegard of Bingen and Christine Pizan before her. They refer to the Bible and the patristics, which stresses the equality of men and women and mental-emotional aspects. Marie-Légeard de Gournay's desire to see both genders as equal could not perhaps change the misogynistic attitude of men of her time. However, she found a successor in the philosopher Anna Maria van Schoormann, who passed on Gournay's concern in her logical treatise, which deals with the question whether a Christian woman should be a scholar or not. Thanks to her clear language and the many references to current issues, like the discussion of the women's quota, Marie-Légeard de Gournay's writing, The Equality of Men and Women, is very good applicable in philosophy, history, social science and French lessons, as well as in religious education. Gournay's treatise, The Equality of Men and Women, is dedicated to Queen Anne of Austria, just like the last female philosopher of this talk, Olympe de Gouges, did in her Declaration of the Rights of Women and the Female Citizen from 1791. Which can be compared to the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948. She addresses another royal Austrian, Marie Antoinette. Gouges fought against slavery and for the validity of civil rights for women, because both women and slaves weren't granted these rights in 1789, despite the supposedly universal character of the civil rights. Already in 1784, Gouges wrote a play, Slavery of Negroes, and a treatise, Reflections on Male Negroes, which were decidedly directed against slavery. Likewise, she wrote many political pamphlets between 1788 and 1791, like Heroic Action of a French Woman of France Saved by the Woman, which already anticipated many ideas of her declaration. The Declaration of the Rights of Women and the Female Citizen was written analogously to the Declaration of Rights of Men and of the Citizen from 1789, which was passed by the National Assembly in 1791, only a few days before Gournay's declaration, that had been delayed in publication, was published. The entire text consists of an appeal to the Queen, rephrasing Gouges' intention, the Declaration of the Rights of Women and the Female Citizen, with a preamble and a postscript, and, in addition, a draft for a social contract between men and women. I won't quote the following excerpts due to the lack of time. I hope that's okay. You can read them after. I just read one article, the first one. I think that's the most important one. The following excerpts represent parts of the core of the declaration, are well suited for use in the classroom as well as at university, for instance, to compare them with the relevant articles as I told you, in the Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen. The first article says, "Woman is born free and remains equal to men in rights. Social distinctions may be based only on common utility." There's a lot to discuss about that. I did that with my students as well in my classes. Gournay's declaration is the spearhead of feminist legal philosophy, which grants both men and women civil rights. It possesses a universal claim. Her main concern is, like all women philosophers in this talk, not the annulment of gender differences, but the formal legal equality claim which is independent from the material and physical circumstances. The Articles 7 to 10 mirror Gouges' universal claim. There she says that all should obey this rigorous law and so on and so on. So no matter if they are male or female. The right to mount the rostrum was denied the French women until 1946. One of Gouges' major achievements is that she, I quote, was the only one who summarized the emancipatory claim of women in a systematic catalogue of demands. Together with the English Enlightenment philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft, Olympe de Gouges formed the vanguard of the European and truly universal legal philosophy of the 18th century. Her political writings, including her last book, The Three Urns, or The Salvation of the Fatherland from 1793, were obviously too progressive for those male-dominated times. A few days before Gouges' execution in 1793, the French National Convention decided not to grant women any civil rights, and thereby also political clubs and societies became illegal. The endeavour of this talk was to outline the relevance of the 4 women philosophers in school, so that the ladies do not have to wait longer in the bookshelves for their discovery and transmission. I will come to an end with the help of Olympe de Gouges' words. Women, wake up! The tocsin of reason sounds throughout the universe. Recognize your rights. Whatever the barriers set up against you, it's in your power to overcome them. You only have to want it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia, for this presentation. Are there any questions for us? It's clear. We accept it. Yeah.
But I'm wondering a bit about how you could teach all this mystical stuff to secular school kids or to school kids with completely different religious worldviews. So I think, somehow the conclusion seems to be right, but the premises are so strange that I'm really at a loss to see how you simply could put that into the heads of the kids.
That's exactly the point, because they got all different backgrounds. They are more sensitive to one another's worldviews, and probably also to the non-mythical and mythical approaches we have here when addressing women philosophers, and especially those who are not religious.
But if you start, if you go to the classroom and you tell kids, listen, this nun had some visions. Therefore,
the heathens, the Pizan
are equal. How should it work?
So, well, I guess the kids at school are more open to discussions like that than probably most people think they are. Probably I got your question wrong, so I don't answer it correctly, so please do correct me if I got it wrong. But students are very curious about what did they say, and goddesses, they think that's very, very interesting to talk about that. Especially if you talk about what's really well loved is the symposium, if you teach it in school, because so the I don't know the English term for the ball, Kugelwesen. I don't know the English term for that. Kugelwesen, does anyone know the English term for that? that's what they really love. I did it with 7th graders, and they loved it. Oh man, yeah. We were all balls rolling around, so seeking for the other half and so on. So they really love it. Probably they don't get the gist at first, but bit by bit they become interested, and that's my focus. That's what I'm aiming at, that they become interested, and then they ask for more and so on. Andrea.
To this discussion, I think because of my own teaching background, analogies, stories and short stories and science fiction and so on helps to teach equality. For example, what means equality and how could you explain a small diagram? For example, the analogy to equal forms, big and small and round and not round, and I think this is not dependent on a cultural background, because the example with geometry makes it clear that there are things equal to other things independent of your cultural background. So I think it is possible to teach the sophisticated idea of equality in sociology and culture by how with analogies, short stories and so on.
I just take down your question for further research matters. Right. So, are you satisfied with my answer, or our answers in this case, or aren't you?
My worry is a bit about the argumentative force of starting with visions and deriving some philosophical claim from them. Because I mean, you have completely different visions in the Middle Ages. So Crusaders who had a vision that said that they have to conquer Jerusalem. So you wouldn't say, well, this person had this vision and therefore it's right to do the Crusades.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not here as the teacher, but this is the point I would add at that point. Because I think I think we do nothing good to Hildegard of Bingen if we claim her to have taught in visions. Because she's a natural scientist. That's the point. Who enmantles or discloses her natural scientific knowledge within these quoting visions. You know, she is attached to stones, to fishes and so on. And I interpret her Scidias, so in the context, like Umweltphilosophie.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very strong. And perhaps it's a bisschen devious, I don't know the English word, or bringing from the road, you know, to talk, to refer to it as a vision. Because she's, in my view, she's a natural scientist. She has an idea of nature. And she has a completely different idea of nature. And I wouldn't attach and I wouldn't go to her thoughts from the religious point of view. And I think her life and the problems she had within her life makes us sure that she went beyond the Catholic and from the church restraining and constraining ideas. So this was a way how she tried to go beyond. And I would agree with you to say it's difficult to say it's a vision. I think so. Taking the word vision is for her to say, how can I come into this discussion? That's the point. And Gerhard Ortner perhaps adds something, because you have brought wonderful texts from Hildegard of Bingen also, or from the other one. So perhaps you can refer shortly to that. The other one, I love this, what you have cited from
Teresa
Teresa of Avila. Yes?
Mm.
Yeah.
I haven't got it in my brain, I can't remember it, but if you think it was impressive, it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there are words, even from Teresa of Avila, she says, oh God, ich sag's mal in Deutsch, was hat sie gesagt? Sie hat gesagt, oh God, we are not the ugly woman here in this church, or something like that. What was this? Refrain. Wie war der auf Deutsch?
Ja, gut, aber ich kann nicht.
Okay, but so this is really, I think it's very necessary to have a second look on these visionary women, because this was really Gerhard Ortner has made this within his Musica Sacra, the strong, very strong and very critical expressions of women against the church. Yeah. I think this is a new discussion we will have on these topics. I thank you very much. I'm very happy to have had this small conference, this workshop with you here. And I think we enter new discussions. We have just breaking through the wall, and now perhaps the sound of the doors or other female bands could be heard now. I think we have transgressed the gap. Yes, it is not any longer like that there is a gap and there are the women, there are the men. I think the testimonies are broad and rich now to see, yes, there is a different history. There's not only a history of the women philosophers themselves, but there is a deeply connected, and there are new ways of thought that we have to conquer. And we will see our world in a different light, and perhaps, and we assume, this will be the better for our world. So, thank you very much.